Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Candace Witt, and I'm a prayer practitioner with Centers for Spiritual Living. It's wonderful to see all of you here today. Let's just close our eyes and go within if you're comfortable. I recognize the presence of that one source, that divine spark, that creative expression of life, right here, right now. I know that that spark is in this place. It is at the center of each one of us and allows us to connect to all that is, to be that universal presence everywhere. I give thanks for that wonderful source that's always available, always there, with creative possibilities at all times. I give thanks for Reverend John and his message, for RL and Max for their wonderful music, for our core council, which helps to make this center work, and for each one of you, because you are what make this center, as together we say, and so it is. Sometimes I feel like my grandmother. My grandmother grew up in a different era, born just after the Civil War and living through the Great Depression and 2 world wars, all with the potential to cause anxiety. As a child and as an adult when she visited us and our children, I remember her always worried about things, overprotective and concerned about so many things. Fear was underlying so much of her life. These last few weeks have presented many challenges with health issues in our family, as well as the world issues that have been unfolding. I've begun to feel like my grandmother, filled with concern and worry, definitely pulling me out of my present moment space of thinking positively and open to possibilities. I know that as I get older, it seems that my bandwidth has narrowed, that when I hear about potential negative things, it's not so easy for me to release any sense of fear and to bounce back to being the me I know, the me who can look at things with a much broader vision. I have to realize that as a grandparent and mother and a concerned citizen, I am no longer, or may never have been, responsible for the decisions that are being made, both in our family and in our world. I have to take myself out of the equation to release any attachment to expectations that I might have and how I'm not involved in these decisions. My focus has to be on being there as a sounding board, but not pushing my views for my family, knowing that the parents are fully capable of making those decisions necessary for their own family as they move forward. I know that each one of them is making these decisions based on love and able to think clearly to sort out the most viable possibilities available. I also have to protect myself from the overload of negative information that seems to be bombarding me on a daily basis. After all, there is very little of that I can actually have an effect on. Whether it's about the state of our world, or concerns about my family, or personal concerns about myself, fear and worry never has a place. It only closes me down to the positive options that are out there. I want to realize that I don't have to follow in my grandmother's footsteps, allowing fear and worry to rule my life. By being aware in this present moment, I can recognize when it's happening to me. It reminds me of the serenity prayer, to accept the things I cannot change, to have the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I have to pay attention to those things that I can do. I need to focus on sending love and healing energy and prayers of peace to our world and each person in it, knowing that peace is possible and love is all there is. Thank you. It's time for us to read the Affirmation Notes in the center of our program. It's in red on the first page. I answer yes to the deeper callings of my soul, which brings forth a clear direction, purpose, and understanding. Thank you.
Morning, everybody. Morning, everybody at home in your pajamas with a fresh cup of coffee. You know, one thing I'm so aware of, and I've mentioned this a few times over the last 2.5, 3 years, is our being present in living history. And when it even comes to what do I talk about on a Sunday morning, I'm really not sure what it is until I get there because things are moving so quickly. And in this, I've created our monthly theme of answering the call. In other words, what am I supposed to do? And of course, just the word "the call" sounds so grandiose, doesn't it? Like, what is the call? Don't you think of sometimes Hollywood movies of someone getting that look of determination in their eye, and the violins go up into the background, and they, walk off into the sunset answering the call. I've not had that version yet. I'm still hoping for that version. I mean, praying for that version, but it's a slippery road, and I just want to talk about that today. But as we truly seek guidance and quote-unquote the call, again, that is so intimidating, answers come in amazing and surprising ways. So one thing that I came across this week, and maybe you did as well, that, again, something I would have never thought of as I'm thinking, how can I make a difference in some way? And there, of course, in this world stage, we think, well, how can I make a difference? How can I help change or make someone's life better or easier, particularly in the Ukraine? And this is amazing. This week, 61,000 people have booked Airbnbs in Ukraine, with no intention to visit, but to be able to physically, in a sense, give funds to a Ukrainian family that hosts an Airbnb. And Airbnb, the company, has responded with not taking any fees on either side, that it goes direct. Now, of course, there's some things that logistics, you have to make sure it's not a management company from, say, Poland or somewhere else that's going to direct family, and I guess you can figure that out. And maybe now, I would assume the banking systems are breaking down, maybe they would have less ability to get it. So maybe a better thing would be to donate to world food organizations and relief organizations. But I would have never thought of that on my own. I mean, and when I first heard of this a couple days ago, I thought, oh, isn't that nice, a handful of people? But then I read yesterday, 61,000, people have done this to people in Ukraine. And in the article that I read, that there was some sharings of the response from these families of how they were so overwhelmingly touched that in the sense of their lives being up in the air and not knowing what they do. Do I run for the border? Do I, go to the subway with my family and my pets and wait it out? That someone, a complete stranger from the other side of the world, would say, let me book 8 nights in Ukraine, and know that they could have a few $100s for that. So isn't that amazing? So again, I'm not promoting that we should all go do that today. It may or may not be the best thing to do today. But I would have never thought of this, would you? I mean, really? I mean, it's just like, so what else haven't I thought of? Probably a lot, actually. But sometimes you think there are no options. I cannot make a difference in some way. I'm really stuck in my own how I see the world, that an idea like that comes and go, oh, and if you were one of those people that did that, I can do it now. I have a computer. I have the internet on most days. And I could take out my card and do it now. So there's part of the feeling that I would like us to invite in this world of confusion and I can't believe what is going on, that this idea that there are so many ways on a daily basis that we have not yet thought of that we can make a difference. And I think that a lot is our job, especially if we feel physically away from a lot of the harm that's going on in the world up on top of our mountain here, that there are still ways, and praying for guidance is to open up to those ways. So in that theme, for those who read my blog this week, I included a passage from the Old Testament, which isn't something I do often. And I'll read it for you in a moment, but what I didn't go over was how I stumbled upon it again this week. Well, since I'm not like an avid Bible reader, like I read stuff and then I forget about it sometimes for years, and then I'll like stumble upon it, go like it's for the first time. And so I came across this passage in a novel that I'm reading that's set in the Revolutionary War. And there were so many things with the story of these fictional characters that seemed relevant today that when I saw this passage, it went, wow, that's really relevant to what we're going through today. But just to kind of, not to tell you the whole story of the novel, but so first of all, in the Revolutionary War, with a lot of conflict in family against families, much like we have today, people wondering, again, what is my role? What do I believe? And I realize as I'm reading this historical novel, how we often, about that period, have this idealized view of history. 4th of July, we're like, we signed the Declaration of Independence, and before you know it, we have the United States. But in grade school, it was a very kind of upbeat, gee, kind of thing. This is what we did, and it happened so quickly and easily, and not so much. That over a period of several years, people were having to ask these very deep questions of what is my role? What am I supposed to do here? And even if choosing a role or a side, like, again, what is mine to do? And the realization I had from reading this novel is, again, back in history, it's like, well, we just had to tell those British to blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, before that, we were all considered British. So, so it's like, well, no, we're with this own group that had all this separation, and what should we do? And it wasn't like kicking those people out. So like, well, they're actually us, and we're making a different decision here. And the war actually wasn't over until 1783. Our Constitution wasn't signed until 1789. So it wasn't the great school history of, 4th of July, fireworks, now we're done. And so as we are looking at our time right now, not that it has to be that long process, but to realize when you're in the midst of it, to be in the moment and just continually ask, what is mine to do? But this character, back to how I stumbled across this Bible passage from Isaiah, again, like everyone at the time, what is mine to do? What is my role? And at that point, living in an area that was a little bit removed from the fighting, and I guess the character had to go do something, some kind of family business that was a 2-day ride or something like. Anyway, found himself in the middle of like, there's a battle about to go on. What is my role? It's time for me to choose. And this character happened to be a minister, and he chose that his role was to be a battle chaplain, meaning not that you hang out in the hospital tent, that you actually are on the battlefield and you might be with soldiers in their last moments. Hold their hand, tell them that it's okay, that they're whatever you need to tell them. And he realized that, of course, he made that decision without telling his family, of course, because he was off going to do something else. And so he wrote a note to his family and put it in his pocket because he knew that he could very well, be killed in this. And on that, I know this is a big setup, isn't it, was this Bible verse. But it was so relevant to what's going on today. It's like we're finding ourselves in the middle of this, how did we get here kind of thing. And so this is the verse for those who didn't read this week, and review for those who did. It says, I have heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall be sent? Who will go for us? Then I said, here I am, send me. And it goes on to say, and this is saying to the person who was going to be the one to go, it says, know that those that you go to can hear but not understand, can see but can't perceive, for the heart of his people is darkened. And that last part of the line, I think, hit me, because the heart of us, I think, in a sense, is darkened. And we're in this period of time of accelerated history of, again, the darkness of, why are we here? How did we get here? What are we supposed to do? It's just kind of like, what? How did this happen? It just doesn't make sense. So I really related to this character saying, I don't know what this means, but here I am and I'm available. And I think that's a big part of where we need to get to ourselves today when we are asking, in a sense, for praying for guidance. And that our prayer for guidance and how we approach it may have to be a little bit differently. So how do we often, as human beings and Americans that have so much of abundance, how do we approach praying for guidance? So I think I'll put in my order today in prayer for guidance. And I know that at some point when I open, again, the violins in the background, I'll get a PDF file. And there'll be some bullet points of things that I can choose to do. And I like bullet point A and B, but C is a little too uncomfortable, so I'm going to nix out on that one and maybe farm it out to someone else. And maybe the one further down the list, and I don't want the list to be too long, I might get to those at a later time. But we have this idea, of course, that I receive this guidance and I have a choice, and we are always at choice, but I'm going to pick and choose here. And to a certain amount of, I guess there's a certain amount of a way that works, sort of thing. We always have choices in front of us. We always have the right to say yes or no. But I believe we are in a period of history where, as I've said before, I don't know what I'm going to be called to do today at 11, let alone tomorrow. If I were sent bullet points, they would probably expire by noon because things change so quickly. So the way that I read this is that it's time to just show up and have absolutely no idea what we're showing up for. And it's a little scary and a little intimidating. And as I was thinking of this, and again, the whole idea with war in the world right now, I thought of my parents, the World War II generation, that the day after Pearl Harbor, my dad, with thousands of other young men, just showed up to enlist. My mom was a registered nurse. She didn't go overseas, but she ended up working at hospitals where servicemen would come back that needed long-range convalescence and health care. And it wasn't like, well, I don't think I want to take care of that person today. It was like, no, whatever showed up at the door is what she handled. And at that time, as a child, some of the things she told me is like, really? And you think you're going to have one kind of day, and then you have a different kind of day. And then I saw this morning something that I found really moving. It was just a 1-minute video that was created about those who are serving in Ukraine as soldiers. And it was just a very quick video. And of course, you know what soldiers look like. They've got the uniforms on and they've got guns and things happening. But each soldier that in this video was given 3 seconds. And one was saying, I'm a teacher. I'm a cab driver. I'm a sales representative. I drive the school bus. I was just the best man at my friend's wedding. I'm the guy who helps the old lady next door when her heater goes out. And so you see this sense of being called out of what was, quote unquote, a normal life to something else. And I've certainly, as you have all have read different things over the last couple weeks, of people saying that it's almost like been this whiplash thing of, one day I was having coffee at a cafe, and the next day I was fleeing the country, or the next day I was in uniform, or the next day I was running away to safety. So in this, turn on a dime kind of existence that I believe is not just for them, but for us as people in living history, that we have to just be ready. Just be present. And rather than praying for guidance, again, in a different way. So praying for guidance now to me is potentially one of the most intimidating things you could possibly do, because the way I think we're being called to pray from guidance now is that our prayer should be, here I am, send me. I mean, isn't that a little frightening? It's not like, but will there be vegan food available? Or will there be cream for my coffee? Or some silly thing like that. It's like, without conditions, here I am, I'm good to go. Whatever it is, I'm here to do it. And in that, to know that it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to go overseas or do any things like what the Ukrainians are being called to do right now. It means in the moment, you will, through that prayer, be guided to say something or to do something that you may not have thought of before. And in some ways, on a human level, especially compared to what some people are doing in the world right now, it might be something that we would judge as pretty small or even inconsequential, but it's part of a larger upswell that is going to make a difference and heal our world. Sarah, I read someone I follow on social media, Heather Cox Richardson, and she does commentary about politics, but this was a non-political little thing she wrote. She says, every day people write to me and say they feel helpless to change the direction of our future. I always answer that we change the future by changing the way people think, and that we change the way people think by changing the way we talk about things. To that end, I have encouraged people to speak up about what they think is important, to take up oxygen that otherwise feeds the hatred and division that have had far too much influence in our country as of late. So to say, send me, at a very basic, simple way, is taking that opportunity when someone is ready to say, isn't it so bad? Isn't it terrible? Isn't the worst going to happen and be inevitable? And not to be a Pollyanna white liar, but to say, maybe in this moment, but not in the next moment. That as one of the talking points I've had over this last year is that one of the most powerful things that we can do is to shift the conversation. And that is such a powerful thing to do. That in the place of fear and anxiety, that we can energetically at least bring it back to neutral. That if people are talking about how we're on the edge of the world ending, to know that it's not. And actually, I believe that it's not. Yes, I believe we're experiencing some really horrific things in the world right now. We are experiencing division in our own community. But I also see it coming together. In fact, I think the things happening in Ukraine are actually bringing us together in a way that I think we didn't see as possible a few weeks ago. That people that we thought had lost their minds seems to have not lost their minds quite as badly. You know, we're not willing to say that they're okay yet, but you know, they're maybe not, you know, as cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs as I was willing. They're just a one-box cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, not a two-boxer. But we have to, you know, return to this passage in Isaiah as we change the conversation. And again, as says, realize, again, that the hearts of the people is darkened. We're sad. We're in grief at a certain level. We're having an inability to understand where we are or why we are, that the world always doesn't seem to make sense, but it seems to have an extra portion of it. It doesn't make sense right now. And to realize that. And this other part of the line that is so relevant to today, it says, know that those that you go to can hear but not understand, can see but cannot perceive. And to know that that person might just be you. We like to think that it's always the other person that is misinformed. We like to think that they are the ones that went to that weird website and believe all this stuff that's not true. But that person might actually be you. It might actually be me, and at some level it is always all of us to a certain extent. That we kind of get ourselves in a little area of belief, or we go to certain information sites and we kind of eat that up and think that anyone that goes anywhere else is deceived. And I think part of this being willing to show up is the willingness to also be humble and to realize that I might have taken a direction that's not the best for me or my community. That when we talk about oneness, it means about embracing all things and realizing that some of that embracement even is to myself as I have allowed myself to be misinformed. That in this send me, that it really isn't an in-moment vulnerability of really not knowing what's going to come up next. And even thinking about the situation in Ukraine, did anyone a couple of weeks ago really think it would be like this exactly? I mean, really. We like to think that things just can't happen. Things like that happen in the history books. How can they happen like this right in front of us? So as we say, send me, I mean, to realize, what does it mean to answer a call? That it's not this necessarily lofty thing. In fact, a book that I love that came out in the late 90s is called The Call. And again, it's so interesting how we think of the call. Again, like the Hollywood movie moment of, I'm called sort of thing. And you might think of it as someone with like a job, like my job. Oh yes, John, I've had people say, John, you're so lucky to have that great service kind of job. It's like, and I remind people, you have no idea how easy it is to mess this job up. No, I mean, really, on a daily basis, hourly basis, how easy it is. That it's not like, the call, John, look, God, look at John's doing because he answered the call. It's like, look at the idiot John's been today answering that friggin' call. Like, he got a wrong number today. But one of the passages from here that David Spangler says, no one wishes for crisis, but when crisis comes, they can call forth our best impulses, those of compassion, courage, creativity, and community. And if there are crimes and evils hidden in the dark places of our society and the darker places of our consciousness, all the better they come to the surface to be seen, understood, confronted, and healed. If our generation is called to bear a burden of that healing, it is a powerful calling and honor and one within our capability. So I've certainly had that sense of everything is out there to be looked at. Just was talking with RL this morning about something in current events. It's like, well, it certainly isn't hidden anymore, what they're trying to do, or the agenda, or, what's that saying? They're saying the quiet part out loud. Everybody's saying the quiet part out loud right now. If you have, any like nefarious sort of thing, don't even pretend to be sneaky about it anymore. And actually, that's kind of a good thing. It's kind of like all there as we say, here I am, send me. It's a little bit easier to see what you're being sent to. It's like, it's right there. You don't have to do research anymore. It's right there, right in front of us. And so if there is a gift of these times, maybe that's part of it. To say that it's really clear what is in front of us. And again, to say that certainly there can be some planning of how you may want to be of service in the world, but to realize it is often a moment-by-moment occurrence. How things show up to be on your plate with your name on it is kind of sneaky how it shows up, in fact, I have found. And that it's not a matter of saying, well, let me go home and pray on this. It's like, well, no, it's right here in front of you. There's no going home and praying. There's no going taking it to the retreat center anymore. It's like, no, here it is. It's right there. It's a yes or no right now. It's a one-time offer to be of service right in front of you. Again, there's no going home and praying on it. It's like, here you are. Yes, no. Are you going to do it? And that's what it means, here I am, send me, because, well, doesn't it on one hand sound really great and almost like the Hollywood moment of here I am, send me, until what comes in front of you is like, can you send something else? Is it a choice kind of thing? Can I wait till after lunch to do this? And the answer is actually no. This here I am, send me means here you go, right now, when you least expect it. It's a commitment to say that I'm here to serve, and the guidance is coming right here, right in the moment, and it's binary, yes or no. And that is obviously not going to be the last time. Some days are pretty amazing of how many opportunities come up. And just even looking over these last couple years, how many things many of us would have preferred not to have done? I mean, let's be honest, let's whine a little bit. It's like, really? We have to do that? Yes, you had to do that. We all had to do that. And there's going to be more in that in our near future. But there is a sense of freedom in saying, here I am, send me. That's my commitment to do what I'm called to do in the moment. And to know that it's not necessarily this Hollywood moment where it appears so clear in this larger arching thing of the purpose of my life. The purpose of our lives is to be present in the moment. Just one more thing I want to pull from him from here in talking about this. Because again, isn't this a very lofty title? Oh, there it goes. The call. I've got the call. He says, over the years, however, I've learned there is much more to the idea of a call than simply answering the question, who am I? To explain this, I would like to make a distinction between a call and a summonings. I believe that for many of us, when we think of the call and of being called, we actually think of being summoned. When you are summoned, there is implicit in this idea a sense of direction. I am summoned to do something or to go somewhere specific. I am summoned to dinner. I am summoned to my work. I am summoned to the courthouse. I get a summons. A call, however, need not be that specific. It need not offer a definite sense of vocation or direction. In fact, some of the most powerful calls that we may receive in our lives, the calls that come from the deepest part of ourselves, are not summons, but are more like awakenings. They call us to attention. How often we have the experience of somebody calling our name and immediately our attention is heightened. We say yes or here I am. Or whatever response is appropriate. The call may not carry with it any kind of implicit direction. The person doing the calling may simply want to know if we're here. For example, my youngest boy gets home from school. He comes in the door and calls out, Mom, Dad. He knows we're there, but he wants to be reassured that we're there. So from wherever I am in the house, I call out in a response and let him know where I am and what I am doing. I mean, it's usually something like, I'm over here at my computer. The call may not be doing anything other than establishing a presence, determining that we're really here, that we've shown up. An anthropologist and spiritual teacher, Angela Arendt, would say, that's what she would say, to show up. So the call may not be to a specific duty, but to an awareness of what the moment asks of us. It is a call to pay attention. So here I am, send me is basically just this. Here I am. It's a paying attention. It's, as they say, put aside childish things and be here now. I know it seems like it shouldn't have to be that simple, but it really is. It's to pay attention, be present, and act accordingly, even if a part of you just says, oh, I can't, but you do anyway. So let's just take this within. And first, and the most important aspect of any prayer is to give thanks. How blessed we are for so many reasons. How amazing life is in spite of so many things that appear to be going wrong. But in this gratitude, we allow ourselves to be exactly where we are, present in this moment, ready to serve. We say, "Here I am, send me," knowing that may even involve me not leaving my home. But we are here to pay attention, to say yes. Yes, regardless of how uncomfortable it may be in some moments, we say yes. We embrace the larger arc of history right now, knowing that we came here with a purpose. And that purpose simply was to say yes. And here we are. So we stand in this moment in time, knowing that as we do so, we are part of the healing of this planet, of our civilization. As we strongly say yes, we are also strongly saying no to that which needs to be said no to. And we absolutely know that as humans, we have no idea what this will entail. But we say yes anyway. And in this yes, we further express our thanks. And in this thanks, we just let it go and let it happen. And so it is.